Hello, this is Sarah, painter creator. Hope you're doing all right. A few people have been asking me about skies and how I paint skies. Sorry, I just had a plane coming over. So how I paint skies. So I've just put together this little swatch card because these are the main colours that I use when I'm doing skies. And obviously in different mixes and in different ways, but these are the basic colours that you will use if you're doing skies. So I thought I would do quite a simple painting with you today, and that we can have a play with the skies. It's really important that you are working quickly through the skies. You can't rest in between a base sky and then putting clouds on and come back to it halfway through. It doesn't work. What you have to do is you have to work quite quickly through if you're going to do a wet in wet sky, so that the clouds sort of become part of the sky. If you're needing a rest after putting the first layer of the sky on, let it dry completely, like super uber dry, then re-wet it with some clean water, and then you would be able to go back into it and put additional clouds and things on it. But you must re-wet the whole sky with the water, not just little bits, because otherwise it will bloom. If you don't work quickly, you will find that your clouds sort of have hard edges, they bloom. That's part and parcel of the balance of the water that's on your paper and what it's looking like, and it's different in different climates. If you're struggling to keep your paper damp to work in, and you're in a warmer climate, wet it underneath, and as well as wetting it on top. You probably won't need to tape it down if it's wet underneath, and that will keep your paper wet longer. The other thing to remember with skies is that the paint for the clouds is always a thicker consistency than the paint that's on your paper, so that it sits in a cloud formation and just softens into the wash, rather than it going into a big blobby mess, and you end up with big cauliflowers, unless you want those sort of things happening for you, because sometimes it's fun. So hopefully those colours will help you. Because we're going to be doing a painting about skies, I've just done a line 5 centimetres up and some random mountains along here. I've got 2 really good jars of water, one for wetting my paper and one for washing my brushes out, and I'm using my Cotman watercolour set by Winsor & Newton, which is a really good student grade quality paint. It produces really nice results, and as always I'm using my Creative Peak watercolour paper. It's a great paper for a reasonable price. Obviously Archie's stuff and Bockingford and all the rest are really good papers, but they're also more expensive, and we just want to play. So finding papers that are good quality and that we can play with are really useful. I'm also going to be using my medium mop brushes. I use these an awful lot. They've got a lovely point. They sit back into the point really well, and they hold a lot of water. So I've spritzed my paints so that they are awake. I use my little spritzer bottle just to wake them up. It's like having a morning coffee. And I'm going to wet my paper with clean water. I am working on a slope, And working on a slope also helps with skies. It helps stop the run backs a little bit. Now I'm wetting my paper all over and I'm wanting it to have a sheen. I'm not wanting the water to be able to move. I'm going over the top of where my mountains are going to be, trying not to get water, she says, on the lake part. And because I'm working on a slope, I'm just going to add a little bit more water into that top. So I'm just going to let that water soak in. And you're looking for sort of a dull sheen across your paper so that it's got an even application of water, and you will see that the paper starts to buckle, so it starts to become bouncy as it's expanding with the water that you're putting in there. So just take a little bit of care doing that. And then once we are going to get going with our painting, we will need to move fairly quickly through. I can keep wetting this. I can keep this moist until I'm ready to go, so I can mix my paints up. So I'm going to be using 3 colours for my sky. I'm going to be using a raw sienna. You could use yellow ochre, which brings a nice glow to the sky. And then I'm also going to be using some cerulean blue and Payne's grey mix, so that we can get some clouds in the sky. So I'm going for my raw sienna. Actually, I might just add a little bit of yellow ochre in there as well. A fair amount of water, so I've got plenty of water on my page. Sorry, I need to get my, like all best things, the cat's needs come first. So I'm just going to, I've just had a little mini break, so I'm just going to spritz the paper just to keep it nice and flowing, and try not to drop paint everywhere. I'm just going to put a little bit more yellow ochre in this part down the bottom, because I want that to be a lighter part. So I'm already starting to sort of plan where maybe some of my clouds are going to go. So you can see I've got some beads, and I don't really want these beads here. So a thirsty brush, I'm just going to soak up those beads. So a thirsty brush is a damp brush, so washed out, taken off on a paper towel, and it just sort of soaks up. So I'm going to now do a mix of cerulean blue and Payne's grey, and hopefully you can see that it's a thicker mix. It's still got a fair amount of water in, but these are going to be my clouds. I want it even darker up there, so a bit more Payne's grey. just going to give that a spritz just to keep the water going in. And clouds tend to go lighter down near the bottom, and they go a little bit flatter. Just washed my brush there because it was picking up that undertone painting, and I wanted it to which is why that had gone. So at this point it's still damp, we can do anything with this. I'm just going to load a bit more Payne's grey into this really dark cloud up here. While it's damp, we can work on here, wet in wet. As soon as it is drying, you must step away from it. I'm just going to tilt it a little bit more, just to get that feeling of the rain coming through. A little spritz. I'm just going to, with a damp brush, just going to soak up these beads of water that are coming at the bottom. And you can tilt your work, it just helps get that sort of sense of movement in the sky. I'm going to continue to tilt. I'm just going to pause and then come back to you once I'm settled, because I don't think you can see very much. So it's still very, very damp, so I can go in again to enhance some of the clouds. It must be thicker paint than what's on the paper. Remember, we will have been losing some, so I can enhance this really sort of dark rain cloud here with a thick mix of Payne's grey and cerulean blue. I might just put another cloud going across here as well. I can give that a spritz, or I can just let it sit in the dampness of the paper. So I'm just now on my board that's normally at around 15-20 degrees. I'm just going to with a damp brush, so it's wet, it's damp, not wet, so, and it can just help control some. I'm liking how those darker patches are coming in this rain cloud. And the longer you can leave something like this, the better, because the paint naturally does its thing. As soon as you're thinking, right, that's where I want this painting to go and be, then you can fix it using your hairdryer. So at whatever point you think, right, yeah, that's where I want this painting to be settled at, lift it flat, because that really helps keep the paint where it is, and then gently with a gentle heat, you can then dry it. So I'm going to dry that now, and hopefully we'll see a nice sort of stormy cloud sky. So here we are, we're back, we're dry. You can tell when things are dry because they're mainly flat. Here's the paper. It's still got a little bit of movement, it's not completely dry, but it will dry off. So here we are, we've got quite an expressive sky in this one. So the painting is going to be around the sky, it's not really around the landscape. If you're planning a painting, you need to think, am I doing most input about the sky and the paint and the landscapes, the supporting act, or is it the landscape that's the main focus of the painting? In which case your sky needs to be a lot less dramatic and quieter in the background. You can still have a stormy sky, but you need this sort of quietness of the colours to just be a little bit more muted. So here I'm loving these sort of streaks of sun that's coming through the clouds, and I'm loving this additional depth that we got when we added the Payne's grey into these top clouds. It feels like it's raining, and there's a bit of a battle for some sunshine in the sky, and I'm really liking that. So I'm really pleased with that sky. Hopefully that's been really helpful to you, but you can see how quickly you need to work and how balanced you need things to be. So the key is around controlling both the water that's on your paper when you're putting your wet in wet sky down, and also how much water is in your paint. So we're going to go and do a really simple foreground on this one, and then hopefully we'll call it finished. So I've just had a little rest. Watercolour's really good for allowing you to rest. If you're enjoying my content and what I do, please like and subscribe and share with your friends, and comment, because I love your comments. They're beautiful to read and really encouraging, because it's a very low tech quiet YouTube channel compared to many, and I'm phoning on my phone, I'm videoing on my phone in my own little art space that's got my daybed that I rest in, and a little bit of me time really that I share with you. So I'm just mixing up a really simple colour, so cerulean blue, a little bit of ultramarine in there, and my trusty red light for a really sort of simple bluey grey colour. Medium thickness, and I'm just going to paint on some of these distant hills. So this is just a wet on dry. And because it's the supporting act, I'm not getting too worried about what it's doing. Trying to keep in tune with some direction. I'm just going to add a little touch more red light into that mix and just drop a little bit of, maybe, I don't know, some rock formations or something on the imaginary hills. They could be in the Lake District, these. I live not too far away from the Lake District. I don't really get to go out very much these days, but I've got some really very happy memories of the Lake District. So I'm going to go for the same, maybe a little touch bit more watery, ultramarine blue and a bit of red light. Oh, this one in the background. More water. It's just drying out a little bit too quickly. I'm just going to spritz those and just try and help everything work together. I personally like how the ultramarine and the red light work together. And you could use burnt sienna in this mix. I've just mixed a bit of a darker tonal mix up here. Same three colours, ultramarine, cerulean blue and red light. The water makes a tonal difference. Trying to break that very smooth sort of leading edge down. So I've got some really simple mountains on the lakeside. So I'm going back to my large brush and I'm just going to mix up some cerulean blue with a hint of Payne's grey again. So whatever I've used in the sky, I will normally use those colours in the water, because that just brings a little bit of harmony. And I'm working quite flat, just move that up. So taking some paint off on my paper towel, and my brush is flat, and I'm just going to move my brush quickly across. I need to just add a little bit more Payne's grey into that mix. So the same off on my paper towel. That's better. I can cover those little blobs with some trees. That's fine. I want this light on the lake. So into that lake I'm going to just drop a little watery mix of raw sienna. And then I'm going to dry that off. And see what we've got. So I've just dried that off. I am going to just drop a little bit more cerulean blue and Payne's grey over the foreground, particularly on this painting. Just lifts that blue a little bit. And it's almost dry is my brush when I'm doing this sort of work, to just stop it streaking. So you can see how dry my brush is, and I'm just wanting to sort of let that paint go into that sort of dampness. If you think, oh, wreck that, you can always give it a spritz and try again, dry it off. But that's really nice. So I'm just going to drop some Hooker's green into this burnt sienna. I need a thicker mix than that. Hooker's green, raw sienna, sorry, and a little bit of ultramarine blue. Might just add a bit more green into that mix. Better. So a medium thickness of a green, and I'm just going to drop a tree line particularly over some of these bits. And if you wanted an island, you could do exactly the same. But there we go. We've got a very, very simple painting in terms of the landscape, but a really dramatic sky. So I hope you've enjoyed that and have fun playing with your skies. They bring something to the table. So like, subscribe, you know the works, and comment please, it's lovely. Have a lovely day, enjoy your painting, bye bye.